If there's a lesson to be learned from the fallen tree in the forest, then, although it may have made noise either way, it wasn't helpful unless someone was there to learn the lesson. Existential dilemmas just don't do any good unless there's a person around to get caught up in them, to smell the existence. For example, what good would Herman have done if I hadn't been around to be lectured and rubbed off on? A long ways back, I was trying to say something about our need for entertainment, our need for art. I remember saying something about how we look for things that reflect our sensibilities, things that reflect our moods, or maybe our firm beliefs. If we can't find people who fit the bill, or enough of them, then we'll look to artists to show us something special. All we have to do is point out things that stand with our personal truths. All we have to do is point out things that stand with our personal truths. All we have to do is point out an example from life that displays a thing of goodness. Maybe it's a mistake we made. Maybe it's a mistake we made. Maybe it's a helpful person. Maybe it's just a thing of beauty. Maybe it's something beautiful and positive and something maybe that someone else won't get the chance to learn from unless we show it to them. Maybe if we can't be superheroes, then maybe at least we can be good teachers, good role models, good enthusiasts who go out of our way to point out a cool who go out of our way to point out a cool thing to another person. It's not so much that we need to look for the work of dead artists. We need to see the work of dead artists. It's more because we'd die of pessimism and gloom if we didn't have simple, non-living, undying objects of art that transcend us. We need them for everything we can't do and be ourselves. Only with art can we reach out farther. Only with art can we reach out further. Only with our artwork can we speak directly to a new century, or perhaps a new millennium. The possibilities are timeless, and timelessness is just about the coolest thing we have. Artists make art for themselves, but the reason their selves want to see it is because they know it isn't made of living tissue. And even though the artist will age and deteriorate and die, their piece of art holds out a promise to only age, and maybe age gracefully. Maybe our preoccupation with death and art is the most human characteristic we have, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe knowing that we only have a limited time in the grass is the catalyst. Maybe because of our notions about death, and because we can ponder and reinterpret the laws of nature, we're able to consider that maybe there's more to life than merely awaiting. Let me read that again. And maybe because of our notions about death, and because we can ponder and reinterpret the laws of nature, we're able to consider that maybe there's more to life than merely awaiting the end. How about the urge to enjoy ourselves, for starters? As the illustrious Daily Show begs, do you like enjoyment? That's a good question. Remember the example of the lemmings, the critters that run blindly to their watery graves just because the lemming in front of them followed some other lemming and so forth over the edge? Unlike lemmings, we understand the consequences of running at a cliff. It means potentially lights out. It means we don't have to bother helping ourselves anymore. It also means we can't help anyone else anymore. But we still won't hang back in the pasture and graze and mate and reproduce and lie in the sun and encourage others to do the same. Some of us definitely will. But nevertheless, some of us will walk right up to the cliff edge to consider what would happen if we took the plunge. We think about what lights out might feel like. And some of us will jump off looking for the answer, launching ourselves into a lonely oblivion. And some of us might even push a neighbor over, probably for no good reason. Maybe just accidentally because we were screwing around and being stupid and we bumped into them and knocked them off. And we, the humans, are kind of funny this way. And I think the other animals are probably laughing at us. As it turns out, most of Herman's high and mighty idealism rubbed off on me, more of it rubbed off on me than I ever thought possible. The editors say my introduction has gotten way too long already, and they've warned me I've allowed very little room for Herman's diaries. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care about that. I used to, but I kind of like the idea of making up my book, since I put so much goddamn time into it. The story I want to tell will be a combination of reality and fantasy, but my hero will understand that these two aspects are intertwined in life, reality and fantasy. That is, the new protagonist must understand that fantasy is an inseparable part of reality. And yes, the example I want to put on the table will prove this, that fantasy is all around and inside us all the times. Read that again. And yes, the example I want to put on the table will prove this, that fantasy is all around and inside us at all times. There's even an argument for each of our individual identities being the compilations of fantasy. Nothing but fantasy, images of the self and images of others, assembled like so many short film clips in our minds. From Hitchcock to Hollywood, to paraphrase a tufted English professor. It is quite true that I can't put my fantasies down on paper as they actually are, just as I can't put anything down as it actually is. All I can do is give a reader my own self-indulgences, my caricatures, my visions, my subjective fantasy of the world around me, my subjective fantasy of the world around me, and my interactions with its characters. So what do we know for sure? Is there any universal truth to be extracted from all the strange lives of people young and old? And doesn't it make sense that universals are just as relative as they are universal? And has this gotten me anywhere? Subjectivity. Subjectivity demands a subject, a person accountable for his or her own self, for his or her own self, as we are always held accountable for ourselves, our thoughts and actions. We are our own best subjects. We should assume this and get on with it. The question is, now that I am so sold on subjectivity, what am I going to do with it? And this just might be the soul of my problem, and without a doubt, the problem of my soul. Interlude. There are people in the world who would prop all selfless behavior into the category of the pathetic altruist who is doomed to get nothing out of life besides the false joy of helping other people. Question: is there really any such thing as a false joy? Maybe the day is near when the truly good ideas make themselves known to everyone. Maybe the day is near when the secrets of the universe and of universal happiness reveal themselves as simple and user-friendly. Maybe the day is near when what is truly good with a capital G becomes too accessible to ignore. Maybe the good of peaceful living will simply be too obvious to avoid one day. And maybe the day is near when everyone sees how simple all this is. Interlude Part 2. Capitalism seems to be fully dependent on our habit for thinking we need everyone's advice and everyone's remedy for every ailment, even ailments we don't have. Question: do we need capitalism as much as capitalism needs us? Sounds like an interesting question. But the answer is a resounding yes, because capitalism is freedom. And freedom is art. And there is no we. There is only you and me. All right, 3 more pages and then we're done.